Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Raymore City Council regular meeting for Monday, October the 11th, 2021. I'll call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call, please.
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Here.
Councilmember Barber?
Present.
Councilmember Berenson?
Present.
Councilmember Burke?
Present.
Councilmember Serko?
Present.
Councilmember Holman?
Present.
Councilmember Townsend?
Present.
Councilmember Wills Scherzer?
Present.
Mayor Turnbow?
Present. We have a quorum. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have no presentations and awards tonight or personal appearances on our agenda, but we do have staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Chief Zimmerman to make a staff report for the police department.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. I'm going to ask Lieutenant Abdelgawad to make his way up here, but I want to tell you all what we're going to be talking about tonight. What he's going to be talking about tonight is crisis intervention and mental health. I know you see reports on the weekly frequently of calls that we respond to within the community where we're dealing with individuals, our citizens who are in crisis. But what Lieutenant Abdelgawad won't tell you about himself and all the good work that he does as our crisis intervention coordinator, working very closely with the community mental health liaison that tends to both our citizens here in Raymore, also tends to our police officers to make sure that we're keeping them healthy and keeping them on the street. He has done such an outstanding job that he frequently takes his show on the road. Are you embarrassed right now? Because I'm hoping I'm doing that. Police departments and agencies all throughout the area here on the western side of the state and probably even beyond frequently have Lieutenant Abdelgawad and our community mental health liaison come to their agencies to teach crisis intervention. So obviously we're doing it right here because there are many, many agencies that rely on us to provide that same level of training and expertise for their agencies as well. So now that you're embarrassed, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I wasn't nervous till she started with the accolades. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Obviously, over the last couple of years, for many reasons, COVID being one of them, there are a lot more calls that we are going to deal with citizens that are having mental health issues. After two more serious events last month that escalated, one that ended badly, one that ended very well, the chief thought it was timely that we talk about crisis intervention and what we do for our community with dealing with crisis intervention and mental health problems. So I'm going to talk about the crisis intervention team, and I will just call it CIT, which that's what it stands for, and it provides law enforcement-based crisis intervention training for assisting those individuals with mental illness. It focuses a lot on de-escalation and improves the safety of patrol officers, consumers, family members, and citizens within the community. So the first CIT program was established in Memphis in 1988 after the tragic shooting by a police officer of a man with a serious mental illness. This tragedy stimulated collaboration between the police, the Memphis chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the University of Tennessee Medical School, and the University of Memphis to improve police training and procedures in response to mental illness. So what Chief Zimmerman hasn't told you is that while she was with Kansas City and crisis intervention was going on in Memphis and we were having escalating problems obviously everywhere in the country, Chief traveled to Memphis to learn about their program. And then she brought that back to Kansas City and actually started it in Kansas City in Metro, is that correct? Center Zone. And then brought it to the area and piloted it in Center Zone in Kansas City. And right after that, Lee Summit saw what Kansas City was doing and it exploded in the Kansas City area, and CIT training started in our area. Raymore started going to CIT training back in 2008. Captain Wilson had learned about it, attended the training, found it to be valuable, and started sending all officers to training because it focuses on de-escalation skills, which we can use on any call, whether it's a mental health call or not. And then when the chief started in 2012, we formalized a CIT unit. Chief asked me to coordinate, which I was happy to do. I'd been through the training, and we started our policy. So the first thing we had to do was reach out to the community and develop our community partnership with how CIT was going to work. And lucky for us, we have Compass Health Pathways at the time, which is a community mental health facility here in our community that we approached and talked about CIT. Of course, they knew what it was, and we discussed how that would work between our agency and theirs. We developed a program where we would handle calls. We had a form that we would fill out. It's called a CIT form, and we would get it to Pathways in order for them to follow up with the consumer to be able to provide services or resources past what we can do on a call for service. So that led to the governor, Governor Nixon in 2013, after seeing the mental health issues in Missouri, decided to form community mental health liaisons. And what that was for was to strengthen the relationship between mental health providers and law enforcement to provide law enforcement more resources. So what that looked like is that every mental health, community mental health facility, whether it was Rediscover or Compass here in Raymore, they assigned a person. And that person was responsible, and they separated it into counties. That person was responsible for reaching out to law enforcement agencies and courts in their assigned counties to establish a relationship with those law enforcement partners and to figure out how we were going to implement CIT across the state so that everybody was getting these resources. Dawn Morris is our community mental health liaison, and if she were here, I would embarrass her. She is absolutely fantastic. She reaches out to every consumer that I send her a CIT report on. She follows up with them. If she can't reach them on the phone, she comes to Raymore PD and says, hey, I can't get a hold of whoever. Let's go by their house. And that's what we do. And we take Dawn, and she goes and makes contact and establishes a relationship with them in order to provide services, all in order that we don't have repeat visits and we can get them help so they can receive the resources that they need. So trained CIT officers are able to interact with crisis situations using de-escalation techniques that improve our safety, the consumer safety, and family members' safety. And the law enforcement community is able to provide care and help to consumers by transporting individuals in need of special treatment to appropriate facilities. And the whole purpose of CIT is to redirect consumers from judicial system to the healthcare system. Because there's no need, if someone's having mental health issues, if there's no crime committed other than that, for them to be in jail. That's not where they're going to receive the help that they need. So what does that look like on a regular day here in Raymore? So we get dispatched to a call, and it could be a third person, it could be the person who's in crisis, and they call us and tell us they're suicidal or they need help or whatever's going on in their crisis during that time. Almost all of our officers, at one point we had 100% of our officers that were CIT trained, but then with turnover and COVID didn't help because they canceled all the CIT trainings for the last year and a half. We will send a CIT officer to that call. So they are trained in de-escalation skills, so they get there, and their whole goal is to figure out, one, how we can calm the situation down, and two, what resources do we need so that we can help establish that relationship. A lot of times it's, hey, I need to go to a hospital to talk to somebody. We can do that. We drive them ourselves, or we can call South Metro, and South Metro's always been happy to do it as well, just depending on the situation. And that's the whole point, is to get them to the resources that they need. It is really difficult for law enforcement to be proactive when it comes to suicide prevention. We don't know when things are going to happen, which is why we definitely need family and friends help in recognizing signs of suicide and intervening by getting us involved so that we can de-escalate the situation and offer the resources and get them to the facility that they need. So one of the things we also know is that we can't help others as a police department without being healthy ourselves, which is why there's been a nationwide focus over the last 4 years on officer wellness and resilience. Police chiefs across the nation have been talking about it, both at International Association Chiefs of Police, the FBI National Academy. It's a conversation that we're having often on officer wellness. So September 26th, which just passed a little bit ago, was National Law Enforcement Suicide Awareness Day, which was created to recognize the service of officers lost to suicide. raise awareness about suicide in law enforcement, and to remind officers and their families that they're not alone. Help is available. One thing, as Chief said, as I've been traveling around teaching building resilience class as part of CIT training, is that in the last 4 years, the number of law enforcement suicides now outnumber the number of line of duty deaths. In 2018, there were 167 line of duty deaths, and there were 184 suicides. In 2019, there was 147 line of duty deaths, 239 suicides. And then in the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021, the numbers are a little skewed because they started adding in medical deaths into line of duty deaths for any kind of COVID death that occurred. They were considering it line of duty. So the numbers for 2020, line of duty was 374 and suicide was 174. However, 272 of those were medical of the line of duty, which actually made it 174 suicide, and then 102 that were due to gunfire, auto accidents, or others for line of duty death. And 2021, up to this afternoon, when I looked up the numbers for this year, line of duty deaths are 349, with 241 of those being medical. So if I subtract those, that's 108, and suicides at 107. So they're running neck and neck right now. The big thing on suicide is that's 100% preventable. I'd really love to see that number be zero, which is why we focus on officer wellness, so that we can remain healthy, we can help others have good family lives, and be able to retire at the end of our career. Some of the ways that we do this here, Chief Zimmerman's been very proactive in having our CMHL or other resources come to talk to our officers. At one point, I remember last year, we had our CMHL come to talk to everybody just during shift change, just see how everybody's doing. Offer resources like EAP or peer support. We have sent officers to training, training such as Warriors Ascent or the Battle Within, which includes counseling and peer support, where they gather amongst peers that have been through similar critical incidents, and they talk about issues or things that they are dealing with, and they have a peer support system there where they're able to deal with the issues they're having. One of the other things we do is after any kind of critical incident, we have a critical incident stress debriefing, and that's after any major event or critical incident for the officers to be able to talk about things that are happening and can get resources for themselves so that they can be healthy, continue to have healthy family lives, and be able to deal with the next call or the next day or the stresses that this job can bring. Like the chief said, the other thing that she allows me to do is teach training for first responders. I do travel quite a bit to go train other agencies or other officers about building resilience and dealing with secondary trauma. And that's one thing that our agency does well. And we allow for us to go teach others and work with others. And I know that several of our dispatchers are also involved in dispatch peer support. And they help other agencies deal with situations like that as well. So that's pretty much what I wanted to discuss. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anyone have any questions? Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excellent report, Lieutenant Abdelgwa. Thank you. It's very informative. I just had a real quick question on the training that you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
That you do yourself regarding, are you the only trainer within our force, or do you have an assistant while you're away that we can also continue to
On that particular topic, I'm the only instructor in our agency that teaches on resilience and things like that. Don Morris, our CMHL, co-teaches with me, so we travel together. So at any point, if I'm not around, Don would be happy to come talk to everybody about the same thing. But across the region, Major Darren Ivey actually is the one that came up with the training. He put it together. He works for Kansas City. And I went to a train the trainer course with him, and there were several of us in the class. But he's getting ready to retire and is only going to focus on training. But of people training in this area, there are not as many.
I see. And then one last question. You spoke earlier about certain calls we dispatch our officers who are trained in the CIT arena, and there's only a few that we have based on retirement and attritions and such, I believe, if I understood correctly.
We have 4 officers that are not trained right now. We have
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Because that was my other question. Do we have to have an on-call staff, but it sounds like we have that
Now,
covered.
there's always somebody working that is CIT trained,
On
usually
schedule.
several.
Outstanding.
And our dispatchers all go to a special dispatch CIT training as well, so that they can try to de-escalate over the phone or things of that
Outstanding.
nature.
Excellent. Thank you. Will be soon. Outstanding. I fully expect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone? Yes, Mr. Holman.
A couple of comments. One, I wanted to commend the chief and Lieutenant Abdelgawad. In addition to this, we got a report. It's been quite some time ago from the chaplains program. And I know you had a little bit of an overlap there because the chaplain said not only are we there for the citizens, but we're checking in with the officers when we come in as well. So you really covering the bases on taking care of your own people. And I think that's something that other agencies could probably strive for the level that we get to on that. And I went through the CIT program. What was it, Lieutenant, about 4 or 5 years ago? He's one of the
it was 4 years,
instructors.
sir.
I was really, one thing that really struck me about the whole program, most police training is done by other police officers, usually senior police officers, and this was as well. There are many police officers there. But there were a number of volunteers, I guess you would call them. Many of these people were parents who had lost a child to mental illness or suicide, people who suffered from mental health issues themselves but were under control with medication. Not only were they instructors, but they acted as actors in our scenarios as well, really added quite a bit to it. So it was a great session of training, and I appreciate it, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Thank you, Lieutenant. Appreciate it. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Lieutenant. A couple of items from me for you all tonight. First, next Monday, October 18th, will be a work session for the council. We currently have 4 items on the agenda. The budget, because it's never over till it's over. Exciting item, redistricting for the census. We are prepared to offer up all of the data that we have gotten to date and make some recommendations to the council initially. COVID grant sources and uses. Now that we've received that first payment that we're going to be getting, thought we'd give a kind of a general overview to the council of where we're at on that and future recommendations that you may see from staff. And last, we will be presenting you with the joint meeting dates for next year, 2022, now that we're back into being able to have those again. That's my first item. Any questions on that? My second item, if I could draw your attention in the it's a housekeeping item. If I could draw your attention to page 201 of your packet. So this was actually going to be Mr. Cataret's item. As you know, he is still out under quarantine. He was actually typing the AIM on his telephone last Thursday at about 3 o'clock, and he typed in, and it went right past me. Under staff recommendation for this, instead of approval, it should be denial. That concludes staff reports this evening, sir.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Fearborn? If there are none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have no committee reports tonight, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. We had 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. I would entertain a motion to dispose of all those items or a portion of. Mr. Townsend.
Move that we approve consent agenda item A, City Council minutes for September 27th, 2021, and items B, Resolution 2137 Rec Park Trail Project, acceptance and final payment.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend, or request rather, that the items be separated out. I don't believe I was here for the 27th meeting. If we could vote on those separately, and I would second the motion if we could do that.
Okay. All right, with the motion maker?
So moved. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. So the motion on the floor at this point is to approve item B, the Rec Park Trail Project, acceptance and final payment. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously 8-0. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of the City Council minutes for September the 27th.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Barber?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, sir. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the city council minutes for September the 27th, 2021. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Have 7 yes. Any noes? Abstentions? 1 abstention. Motion carries. Now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3655 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3655 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from R1 Single Family Residential District to R1.5 Single Family Residential District, a 46.26 acre tract of land located west of the existing Madison Valley subdivision in Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? If not, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3655, Madison Valley rezoning R1 to R1.5.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3655. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Next item is a carried over resolution number 21-35. Could I please have the reading of that by title only?
The reading of Resolution 2135 by title only, a resolution of the Raymore City Council approving the Madison Valley Phase 2 preliminary plat.
Thank you. Is there any questions of staff before I move on at this point? If not, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
a motion to accept the Planning and Zoning Commission proposed findings of facts and approve the Madison Valley Phase 2 preliminary plat subject to the conditions 1, 3, and 4 as recommended by the Commission, and adding the following condition. With the first phase of development, Sunset Lane shall be extended north to Heritage Drive, and Heritage Drive shall be extended from the south lane, from Sunset Lane east to Buffalo Drive.
And that'd be part of phase 1?
That would be part of phase 1, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. That's quite a lengthy motion there. Do you want to, I'll ask for a second. Could I have a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 21-35 with the removal of Condition 2 and the addition of Condition 5?
Yep.
As stated? How do you want to go?
I think legal, from my perspective, the statement from the motion was fine. I want to make sure that the applicant understands the addition or the change of the condition.
I'd like to review that condition again.
Certainly. The condition is with the first phase of the development, Sunset Lane shall be extended north to Heritage Drive, and Heritage Drive shall be extended from Sunset Lane east to Buffalo Drive. Part of first
That's
phase.
part of the first phase.
Only if recognized by the mayor.
Well, he is getting kind of hit with a cold tonight, so I'd let you go ahead and approach the microphone if you have any questions on the motion. I know it's, to sum it up, it's part of your overall plan.
Yeah.
We're just moving it from their third phase up to your first phase in order for that road to be used as a thoroughfare. Sure, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Brian Ron. I'm 1000 Northwest High Point Drive, Liaison, Missouri. This is the first that I've heard this, and the concern that I have immediately as it came is we've been talking about possibly a reimbursement agreement for Sunset. All right, so that's given me a little bit of information of the process of what's happening there, and it's my understanding that we're not even expected to have any of the design or anything for Sunset back to us until the beginning part of next year. That's just design of Sunset. So if I understand correctly, what you're asking is that we basically shut down the entire project until after we get through design and construction of Sunset, which is literally pushing this project out quite a ways, and definitely creates a significant impact on the project.
Okay.
So
Well, I'd ask for a staff response to that. Do you have anything to?
Mr. Krass, as part of the agreement on Parkside, isn't the design of Sunset complete?
It is for Parkside, but I believe this is the southern segment that we currently have under design. We can certainly advance that design. That they've completed the topography. We can work this out, and I'm sure we can reach a mutually agreeable schedule.
Okay.
previously I was told that the contract for the design has been awarded, and the contractor who's preparing that is expected end of February to be working on. That's when they're expected to have something back to the city.
For your project,
For Sunset.
for Sunset.
You know, yeah, I believe that that is one portion of your project, you know, because as of right now, the city was planning on putting in Sunset, and we've been discussing a reimbursement agreement. And like I said, I was told that, you know, in February is when your contractor who you've approved to create, you know, to do the design work is expected to have, you know, drawings back to you. From then, we have, you know, usually a back and forth with the drawings for them to be revised, that type of thing, a bidding process, and all of those things before Sunset would even start. And that's where my concern comes in. I did ask previously if, you know, that would be something that we, you know, again, through the reimbursement, we could do the design, and I was told that was already awarded, so we had to stay with that time schedule.
All right. Thank you, sir. So we have a couple of options. Yeah, Mr. Zur, I was just going to say, so a couple of the options are, we can vote on the motion, work out the details, or we can motion to table at this time till those details can be further worked out and bring this item back at a later date.
Or the fourth option would be to amend the proposed motion in order to remove that condition and insert the number 2 condition back into it, but that's entirely within the discretion of the council at this time.
Yeah.
And a little bit of history on that, if I may, sir.
Yes.
We asked for this, staff asked for this to be a condition in order to alleviate the citizens' concerns on Park that they brought up quite vocally at your last meeting. By doing this with the first phase, the item that they kept bringing up was that citizens would be, or the new residents would be conditioned to only use Park, even if until Heritage and Sunset were put in, and also that those folks would prefer to be able to go to a signalized intersection rather than coming out on just to a stop sign on Park. So the vast majority of folks in this subdivision would end up using the Heritage Sunset. Councilmember Circo had brought up at the meeting that was Sunset through and complete. Any citizens that are going to be going north to avoid the congestion on 58 Highway would more than likely use Sunset to get to to get to 167th to Fox Ridge, and then out to 155th Street. So to alleviate those concerns, staff suggested this as a condition for the council to consider this evening, and actually wrote it into the motion. Again, council could approve this, and if there are several options. Council can approve, they can table, they can not approve the condition or this particular item on the agenda as far as the resolution is concerned.
So we have a motion on the floor, and we're under discussion right now. You've heard from the applicant. Got something to add, sir? Step to the microphone if you do.
Understanding the concerns of the residents, staff, you know, I do think that there is a way to work that out to make everybody kind of get to where we need to be to, you know, keep things moving forward. As I was listening there, and I've been to meetings and heard the concerns. I do understand limiting that traffic till sunset opens up, and I do think a realignment of the phases is something that could help. Just looking at this, if we realigned instead of 1, 2, 3, we realigned 1, 3, 2, all right, which does the first phase as currently shown, the second phase with sunset, all right, because time-wise, it would be expected that, the drawings to be back, the bidding process to be done, sunset could be put in, and then the third and final phase would be, what would be phase 2. So that way, the only traffic that we're dealing with is the initial first phase, and the rest of it then, like you said, would be sunset. The other thing is, by doing it this way, we're also going to be, there's a time frame in building these homes, so you're not going to have all of these homes built all at one time, and that traffic from that first phase, by the time we are done with that, everybody's time, is anticipating that sunset would be open. So as a compromise and to try to help alleviate the concerns, I would think that a 1, 3, 2 phasing would work for us, and meet everybody's time goals and eliminate some of those traffic concerns.
I think I know what you're saying, but I think our concern is, again, what the residents' concern was phase 1 would still empty into park prior to the completion of the construction of the roadway. There would still be that concern, even though you might only have 4 or 5 houses in, that there's a limited option there, which would be park, rather than being able to get over to Sunset to the signalized intersection.
And definitely, some of those homes, depending on how that time works out, some of those homes may be complete, prior to sunset. But this proposal would greatly reduce that. We've also had no problems with establishing a construction route with signs. We've had no problems with closing off to the south there until that, until the occupancy, which it's my understanding that the fire department, once we have occupancy of those phase 2 homes, that they would want that entrance.
Right.
And, that would make sense. We would even consider, I don't have in front of me how many homes are in phase 1, but it may make sense to, kind of parcel that out. 20, 25 homes, you can't do occupancy on more than 25 homes until sunset, or something like that allows the project to move forward, without just flat shutting it down until, possibly as early next summer.
Your Honor.
Yep, Mr. Sir.
From our perspective, as far as staff is concerned, you've got a motion and a second on the floor. Normally, you wouldn't be entering into debate or negotiation with the applicant during this particular time frame. In light of the concerns expressed by the applicant, it may be appropriate to simply have the motion amended in order to table it with instructions for staff to go back and discuss the timing for construction of Sunset and the concerns both expressed by the council as well as the citizens in that area, and then present this back to you again in another 2 weeks.
Okay. Hold on.
It may take longer than 2 weeks.
Right.
I wouldn't want to put that particular time frame on a table. Table it indefinitely.
Did you have a motion?
I have a question for staff.
Okay. It's still up for discussion, so go ahead.
Question for staff. What page in the packet is this this suggestion of amendments written, so I can read it? Because I don't feel I'm able to vote on this because I'm not sure what the motion is.
The motion, a little bit of history on that. The motion was given to Councilmember Townsend based on staff recommendations. The item removing condition 2 is the condition that Mr. Faulkner spoke with the council about on wanting the change back to the original preliminary plat. So that's the removal of 2. The addition of condition number 5 is what we're talking about right here.
What page are you referring to?
79.
Page 79.
79. Okay, and also, was this the same, is this what we voted on last time? Are we able to?
This was tabled at your meeting last time,
All right,
pending approval of item A on the
all
agenda,
right.
sir.
I remember now.
If I can. Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. Zer.
79 is just referring back to the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, and that would have been the removal of number 2 and the addition of number 5 from that. I don't believe you'll see that in the actual staff report that has been provided for this evening, other than there.
Right.
Number 5 is
the
introduced
addition,
tonight. It's
which
what
is
it's the,
through in phase 1 instead of phase 3. Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I only got one question. I know we talked before that park would stay totally closed until the completion of the project.
No.
No. I thought we said that park where it ends now would stay there until the completion, then they'd open it up into the housing, not.
I believe Park was going to remain closed through the end of phase 1 of the project.
Phase 1, okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
You're saying it's at the end of phase 2?
Delay of connection of North Park Drive until completion of phase
Uncomfortable
2.
pause here.
I stand.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Phase 2.
Phase 2. It's item number 4 on that Planning and Zoning Commission. Again, you all have the ability and you have a motion before you at this time. The potential would be if you wanted to amend the motion or simply table it.
Mr. Holman has some input here first, and then Mr. Berenson.
It's...
Are you going to make a motion?
I was just going to say, it sounds to me like this needs to be tabled. I mean, certainly the applicant is not quite on the same page as where we are right now. I am willing to withdraw my second if Mr. Townsend would like to withdraw his and make a new motion.
Well, you can table it at any time. If you want to make that motion, I'll ask for a second.
I'll make the motion to table this until such time that staff and the applicant can get back together and decide when it should come before the council again.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion's been made and seconded to table the item until such time the details can be worked out. There's no discussion on a tabling motion. All those in favor of the tabling motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. The item is tabled at this time. Okay. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3656 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3656 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Han Heating and Cooling for the Radiant Heating Project, City Project Number 21-383-107, for the amount of $42,450, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. If there's no questions of staff, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move to approve second reading of Bill 3656, award of contract rating, heating, public works, operations, and maintenance garage.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3656. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3658 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3658 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Alexander Creek Third Plat.
Thank you. If there's no questions of staff, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3658, Alexander Creek Third Plat.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3658. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Now move on to new business. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3660 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3660 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the fiscal year 2022 budget.
Thank you. This item requires a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I transmitted the proposed budget and capital improvement program to you all on August 16, 2021. Since then, at each of your work session meetings that have occurred, you've had the opportunity to discuss the budget and have indicated to staff a number of items that you would like to see the budget amended by. The budget as was proposed to you in its final form prior to those amendments included total general fund expenditures of $10,632,345, total park fund expenditures budgeted of $1,562,589, total general obligation debt expenditures of $2,411,479, total expenditures in the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund 03 of $302,569, total expenditures in the Restricted Revenue Fund of $17,480, total expenditures in the Enterprise Fund of $9,580,360, and total capital fund expenditures for fiscal year 2022 of $11,595,271. And again, on top of those expenditures, the council has proposed amendments that I believe will be in the motion being made by Councilmember Townsend.
Thank you.
That concludes staff report on this item, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff about the budget at this time? Yes, Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For Mr. Furman, just to clarify, the items that I have before me for the motion and for discussion, or excuse me, just for clarification, are the items that we were reviewing throughout this budget cycle that what we call above the green line on the spreadsheet that we worked through?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Now that it's put that way, it just doesn't sound as good.
Anyone else have any comments or questions of staff at this time?
Your Honor, would you like me to review those for you before the motion is made?
Sure.
They include staff in service day, $20,000, additional December holiday, $5,000, evidence drawing machine, $9,000, pedestrian crossing on Lucy Webb, $16,000, city marketing items, $10,000, electronic signage, $150,000, median at Kentucky and Fox Ridge, $150,000, Fox Ridge Drive modifications, $30,000, amphitheater sound system, $15,000, amphitheater lighting, $10,000, a yet-to-be-determined amount to be set aside in the future for additional curb work and the Recreation Park Trail, this amount to be considered following completion of the 2020 general obligation bond projects. That is the list of items, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? If there are no questions of staff, the public hearing is open at this time. I'd entertain anyone from the public that would like to address the council on the 2022 city budget. Step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one step forward, we'll close the public hearing at this time, and I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Townsend.
I have a pretty lengthy motion for this item. I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3660 for the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget as presented with the following amendments as additions to the budget. Staff and service day, $20,000. Additional December holiday, $5,000. Evidence drying oven, $9,000. Pedestrian crossing on Lucy Webb, $16,000. City marketing items, $10,000. Electronic signage, $150,000. Meeting at Kentucky and Fox Ridge, $150,000. Fox Ridge Drive modifications, $30,000. Amphitheater sound system, $15,000. Amphitheater lighting, $10,000. a yet to be determined amount to be set aside in the future for additional curb work and the recreation park trail. This amount is to be considered following completion of the 2020 general obligation bond projects. The funding for these additions to come out of the projected available fund balance in the general fund. The budgeted expense to be assigned to the fund, department, and expense line as deemed appropriate by the finance director and city manager.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Could you repeat that, Mr. Holman? That's it.
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Okay. That's good. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the first reading of Bill 3660. Is there any further discussion as amended? Motion's been made and seconded to approve Bill 3660 with the proposed amendments. There's no further discussion? Pardon me? I thought I did. Did I not close the voting? Yeah. No problem. Sometimes I forget. There's no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3661 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3661 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2021 operating budget.
Thank you. Is our staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Ms. Williams to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad I get to follow that one. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Before you this evening for your consideration is a budget amendment amending the fiscal year 2021 operating budget. During fiscal year 2021, the following operating transactions occurs, causing projections to exceed budget and require budget amendments. The administration department had additional expenditures associated with sending officers to the police academy, workers' compensation insurance, tools and equipment related to the TB Hanna station, lighted stop signs, and challenge coins. That total was $35,683. The Information Technology Systems Department had additional expenditures associated with a service contract for body cameras and computer equipment and software maintenance in general, which was $18,680. The Street Department had additional expenditures associated with the purchase of salt. That was $23,012. The Police Department reallocated budget dollars from the wage line within their department budget to education to send officers to the police academy. That was $12,420. COVID-19 continued to cause additional expenditures that were reimbursed by Cass County through the CARES Act. That's $31,000. Additionally, in 2021, the balance of the CARES Act funds, which were received in November, were transferred to the Restricted Revenue Fund. That's $879,876 that we moved from the general fund to restricted. During 2021, the American Rescue Plan Act was passed by the federal government to provide funding to local governments. These funds were received in August and deposited to the Restricted Revenue Fund. Because of the amount, we wanted to make sure we presented that in an amendment. That amount was $2,239,214.49. There were expenses in the restricted fund that were not budgeted for 2021. Development Priming Initiative, which was economic development. There was a labor study and Dean Avenue alignment study. Also, we had annexation studies, employee training and safety, a staffing study that was completed, and then court hardware and software upgraded related to Show Me Court transition, which you'll hear more about to come tonight. And that was $40,325. The restricted revenue funds, with the completion of TB Hanna, there were restricted revenue funds related to the parks that were used for that project. There was $50,000 transfer from the park sales to the park sales tax fund from restricted funds. Restricted revenue funds were transferred to the Enterprise Capital Maintenance Fund. These were excess legal funds that were still sitting in our restricted fund related to Water District 10 issue. During 2021, it was necessary to complete wood restore over at Centerview, and the expense was paid for from the BURP fund for $7,794. And lastly, we entered into a lake maintenance contract for Johnston Lake to be funded by the Stormwater Fund. The portion for 2021 is $11,500. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? All right. Thank you, Lisa. If there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3661, Budget Amendment for FY 2021 Operating Adjustments.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3661. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the reading of Resolution 2136 by title only?
The reading of Resolution 2136 by title only, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, confirming the decision to install sidewalk on certain identified undeveloped lots and authorizing city staff to take the steps necessary to have sidewalk installed.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. At your September 27th meeting, you held 4 public hearings on those undeveloped lots that were determined to meet the threshold required to have sidewalk installed by the property owner. The council voted to include the 4 lots on the list to be formally presented for installation of sidewalk by the city, as we had indicated to you. We then follow that up with a formal resolution, which is in front of you this evening for your consideration. That concludes staff reports.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, Mr. Fearborn? If there are none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve Resolution 2136, confirmation of undeveloped lots to have sidewalks installed by the city.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, sir. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 21-36. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3662 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3662 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, adding Section 600.6, Victims Economic Safety and Security Act, VESA, leave to the Administrative Policy Manual.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Ms. Auger to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. The state of Missouri passed a new law indicating that employers of 50 or more employees are required to provide unpaid leave for victims of domestic abuse. We come before you today to add this policy to the Employee Policy Manual.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Holman.
Wouldn't this be something that could typically qualify under FMLA?
Ms. Auger? Yes.
So this is 2 weeks of protected leave that could qualify under FMLA. With this type of protected leave, the definition of family member is a little bit broader than what you would find under family medical leave. And it's 2 weeks, not in addition to the 12 weeks of FMLA.
I assume it wouldn't come with the same restrictions of FMLA that you had to work for the entity for a year as well. Would probably be another change. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. If there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve Bill 3662, Administrative Policy Manual Amendment, the VISA leave policy.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3662. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3659 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3659 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending Section 130.300, subsection A, court costs of the Code of Ordinances, City of Raymore.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Zer to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mayor, members of the council. Recently, the Missouri courts have shot down a $7 sheriff's retirement fund fee that has come out from the municipal court citations. In place of that, the Missouri legislature has adopted a section 476.056 of the revised statutes of Missouri, which would allow for that $7 to then be diverted over to the statewide court automation fund as a surcharge for utilization of the Show Me Courts automated court system. Bill 3659 seeks to amend our Code of Ordinances, Section 130.300A, for court costs in order to allow for the payment of this $7 on a monthly basis, which would be made to the Missouri Director of Revenue as our share of the cost for operation of the statewide computer records system. Participation by the Raymore Municipal Court is technically voluntary with the Show Me Courts automated system, though proper integration from the city to the state level judicial proceedings without it could be substantially hindered. The alternative identified would be shutting down the Raymore Municipal Court and allowing the County Municipal Division in Harrisonville to address the prosecution of municipal citations. I would note that there are costs associated with the adoption of the new procedures and the requirements for compliance with the Show Me Court system. These costs would include purchase of items, including computers, tablets, and other office materials. There will also be costs associated with additional employee time and operations. However, we have, or if approved, would continue to proceed with the Show Me Courts automated system pursuant to Bill 3659. That would conclude staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Mr. Holman.
So instead of paying $7 to the Sheriff's Retirement Fund, the $7 is going to go to the court automation system, and since we are part of the court system that has to be automated, do we get anything back out of that? We collect it, send it off to the Department of Revenue. Do they give us anything back for any of the upgrades or stuff that we do?
I don't believe we will see any of those funds back.
I suspected so. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else have any questions? I have one. Who's the wiseacre that called it the Show Me Courts?
There is a whole committee of individuals established in order to identify that. It includes judges across the state of Missouri. I won't name them by name.
Because they're not going to show us anything, I think.
This was actually first proposed in 1999.
Yeah.
This software has been sitting on the shelf since 1999, so I suspect that many of the judges who formulated it have passed away by now, sir.
It's not.
As this system might in a few years, I'm sure. Okay. Are there any other questions? I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3659, Code Amendment, Section 130.300A, Court Costs.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3659. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Can I please have the reading of Resolution 2138 by title only?
The reading of Resolution 2138 by title only, a resolution in support of the application to the Missouri Housing Development Commission for financing Ridgeview Estates in Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dan Sanders, representing Mako Development Company, is proposing to develop a 60-unit affordable senior housing rental development on 8 acres located west of Dean Avenue and south of Lucy Webb. The developer is now proposing to use low-income housing tax credits for the program, which requires approval from the Missouri Housing Development Commission. Ridgeview Estates is a proposed one-story garden-style apartment community consisting of 2-bedroom units. Amenities include a community room with a fitness center, kitchen area, meeting space, several common areas. At least one tenant in each unit must be at least 55 years in age, with income restrictions based upon family size. Local support for the development is an important criteria in gaining approval of the application by the Commission. Resolution 2138 indicates, if passed by the Council, would indicate City Council support for the application. The reason for staff recommendation of denial for this particular, staff very much supports the low-density housing that the council approved for the northern part of the pork chop that you approved at your last meeting with the rezoning and the PUD and the 55-plus community. That is an ideal use for here. Staff's impression from years of council input is that they have a different vision for this particular area in the pork chop and the future development of Class A commercial on the south end and Class A or market rate residential of either multifamily or low density multifamily on the north end of this, thus staff's recommendation for denial. That concludes staff report on this item, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item. Hearing no motion, the item fails due to a lack of a motion. And that concludes our new business this evening. We'll now move on to public comments. Anyone from the public that care to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. I see no one stepping forward, so I will close the public comments, and we'll now move on to the mayor-council communication. And Mr. Barber, I'll start with you this evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to commend Lieutenant Abdelgawad on his presentation that you did for us today. I can tell you're very knowledgeable and also very passionate, and we are certainly lucky to have you on staff, and it sounds like your knowledge is getting shared, which is very good for many citizens around. I also wanted to thank you too, because not only are you very important to our police department, but you don't mind getting your hands dirty either. Saturday you were out throwing shredding material in trucks, or in the truck for several hours, you and Captain Mayberry and Officer Ray. And the citizens, there was everybody that could come up there very much appreciated that, and I appreciate, as a council member, appreciate that, and as a citizen of Raymore, really appreciate that as well. So we were fortunate to have you, and again, thanks for a very, very informative presentation today.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holman.
I'm going to yield my time to the fine ward members from Ward 4 this evening, sir.
Okay. Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, sir. I was going to say that my husband took my time. So.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Berenson.
I was going to say what she said, but he's not my husband.
It
so.
sounds weird.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
That does sound weird.
I have no comments tonight. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Mr. Townsend.
I can't even follow that at all.
I know, right?
I have no comments tonight, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Will Scherzer.
No comments also.
All right. Mr. Serco?
No comment, sir.
Okay. Mr. Burke?
I will keep it short. If there's ever an opportunity that I could take a day off and come to one of the trainings on de-escalation, I think it would greatly help me in my profession. And I know that my boss would love to let me come and learn anything I can on that. But I would really, that's truly and honest. I would like to have an opportunity at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd also say kudos to Lieutenant Abdelgawad. He was one of the first to really step forward in 2008 when we brought the CIT program here to the city of Raymore and the police department, and has stayed engaged and energized on the topic all along the way. And when you think back, that's a long time, for 15 years or 13 years, almost 14 years to be engaged in one issue. I know he was also very busy helping us with the COPS program. That's the Concerns for Police Survivors in the state of Missouri. One of the first to be involved with that and attend many sessions to help those that were widowed because of line of duty deaths. And your caring attitude toward people and toward this community is commendable, Allie, and we appreciate you and the work that you do. And Chief, we appreciate how you've advanced that program over your tenure here with us. It's it's very refreshing to see us in the spotlight and ahead of many other departments our size and larger even as we move forward on that. It's very important, and you see it throughout the United States. They're talking about that now. One of the topics tonight on the news was about how communities can lend support to those with mental problems and how we can partner with that, how they're moving toward defunding the police for other issues, but we've been able to blend that with professionals rather than try to take away from the service that we're going to be called to naturally in the course of our duties. And I just appreciate everything that you and the lieutenant do, Chief. Thank you very much for the hard work that you put into this. That's all I have this evening.
Your Honor?
Yes, Mr.
May I have a point of privilege?
Sure.
I forgot something during my staff report, and I would be very remiss because of the distance that has been placed on it since it occurred. We have 3 individuals in the city who joined Councilmember Burke in receiving their Certified Municipal Official certification from Missouri Municipal League. So we congratulate Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Excellent.
City Clerk Erica Hill and her assistant Brittany Parker all received that certification this past
Excellent.
month.
Congratulations, guys. Appreciate you. All right. Anything else?
That's all, sir.
All right. If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we adjourn from regular city council session for October the 11th.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded for adjournment. Any discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We are adjourned.